Hello, I'm Zan-Misélel Κουστώ. Welcome to Stories of the Sea. The adventure of diving underwater provides an opportunity to visit a spectacular world filled with breathtaking scenes, vivid colors, and exotic creatures. For some experienced divers, the exploration along rocky bottoms through its forest of giant kelp or over colorful reefs often leads to more challenging type of diving. Specialty diving, as it is called, offers a variety of sophisticated diving excursions. These include wreck diving, deep-water dives, night diving, exploring underwater caves, and cold water diving. Each diving skill requires an enormous amount of experience and planning. Join us as we follow expert divers around the world as they extend the frontiers of underwater adventure and share the unique experience of specialty diving.
For countless generations of seafaring vessels, from the great Viking ships to the brave Spanish galleons, to the most modern naval vessels afloat, the single common link they all shared was a simple fact that each could sink. When storm or battle or any other tragic disaster took these great ships down to their salty graves, the sea, the creatures of the sea, and time itself turned them into ghostly tons of rusted-out wreckage. Yet from this wreckage was spawned one of diving's most intriguing specialties. It's called wreck diving, and it may very well be diving's most haunting recreational activity. The discovery of these ghost ships and their skeletal remains make for some of the most fascinating and adventurous diving in all the world. Unlike some of the other kinds of specialty dives that can only be found by flying halfway around the world, wreck diving can be enjoyed anywhere a vessel has gone down. Sometimes that means a long journey, and sometimes it means simply taking a leisurely trip to the body of water nearest to you. One of the clearest, most beautiful places to wreck dive is just off the Caribbean coast near Grand Cayman Island. Ron and Kathy Kipp are two of the most experienced divers in the dive business. Ron and Kathy have devoted their lives to the art of diving, and they especially love the special challenge of wreck diving. On one of their diving trips, Ron and Kathy brought along a submersible observation vehicle for backup while they searched out the remains of a couple of ships that went down off the coast in the 1800s. Above all, Ron and Kathy have been top-notch diving pros for a couple of decades. They know what they're looking for, and they know exactly what to do when they found it. But what about recreational divers? Is specialty diving reserved just for the elite crowd? Or is this an activity that can be enjoyed by the weekend warrior? With the proper planning, precautions, and training, anybody can be a wreck diver, diving experts say. There are, however, several rules of the road whenever you decide that wreck diving is your specialty. Many wrecks are 60 feet or more deep in water, so it's important that all wreck divers have a clear understanding of how to handle themselves once they're down that deep. That includes a thorough understanding of pressure gauges, air tanks, and other equipment, and a solid understanding of the quality of the wreck a diver wants to explore. Historians say that over the years, hundreds of thousands of ships have sank in all the oceans, seas, and other bodies of water around the world. Any wreck that's over 100 years old is said to be historically significant, and any wreck half that age is called historically important. But to the casual recreational diver, any vessel, young or old, that can be explored underwater is a significant and important find. The deeper, colder, and fresher the water is, the more intact the wreck will be. There's nothing like shallow, warm water to further ruin a wreck through erosion, decomposition, and the natural ravages brought on by marine life. Incidentally, not all wrecks are ships. Anything that has sunk can be considered a prime target for the wreck diver. During World War II, battleships went down all over the world. But inside these ships were sometimes whole cargoes of other military equipment. Tanks, jeeps, fighter planes. These sunken treasures all make for terrific wreck exploration. Passenger ships, commercial liners, and private boats also litter the bottom of all our ocean floors. And every one of them has a tale to tell. Many of them stand tall like drowned skyscrapers in the sea, preserved as time capsules. A curious and experienced wreck diver can explore these sunken treasures and perhaps open these time capsules to discover the truths of their tragic demise. Yet before any person decides to go swimming around a wreck of any kind, the adventurous diver must first take an honest look at what he or she is about to do. A good diver will always first take inventory of his own limitations. Never exceed your limitations, experts tell us, and always prepare for your wreck dive by accepting this simple fact. When you wreck dive, you are entering a dangerous world. But if you as a diver prepare properly with the correct training, equipment, and caution, wreck diving is exceptionally safe. Nevertheless, when a diver knows what lies below him and what he or she is going to run into, every wreck dive can be a safe and successful dive. First of all, after making certain you stay within your limitations, a diver must understand why he should or should not perform a particular action. As an example, since wrecks actually become artificial reefs full of fascinating but uncertain marine life, a diver must be careful not to get stung by a creature he mistakes for a rusty bolt. Therefore, part of every diver's complete diving package should be a pair of thick, heavy gloves. As artificial reefs, wrecks help scientists study growth rates of marine life. If researchers know exactly when a ship became a wreck, it gives them a timeline to study growth rates and ages of certain fixed organisms. So it turns out that wrecks serve more of a function than merely a picturesque dive destination. Wrecks are notoriously unstable. A diver should only enter a wreck if he's had the proper training. There are too many sharp, rusty edges that can slice open a wetsuit or slash the skin of a diver to risk entering a wreck unless you know exactly what you're doing. Once you've found the wreck, it's always safer and more enjoyable to navigate it alongside the hull, peeking inside while your light beam highlights your extraordinary discoveries. Unlike the clear markings around the outside of the wreck, the inside of a wreck can be turned upside down, and the diver can, in an instant, get lost in a maze of twisted steel and dark passageways, where his visibility has been reduced to nothing but a swirling liquid world of black. In order to help you see and be seen, you must, like all divers, carry strong and dependable lights. This is especially true when wreck diving. Strong ocean currents can sometimes act like powerful suctions and can literally pull a diver into a wreck. If that were to ever happen, a strong light beam can tell your diving buddy where you are and might actually save your life. And always be especially conscious of your air tank. Remember, a diver can last only as long as his air lasts. Experts tell divers that it's okay to be adventurous, but it's never okay to be reckless. Stay out of wrecks, and you won't get lost. And you'll never run the risk of becoming a permanent resident of a shipwreck. Although wreck diving is a specialty dive worth its weight in adventure, there is another style of diving that may actually be a little more adventurous and a lot more intimidating, and that's cave diving. The Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, with its mystical ruins both on top of land and under the warm tropical waters, make for an extraordinary introduction to cave diving. In the 1980s, this group of haggard and brave souls went hiking through the dense and humid jungle, slapping away giant mosquitoes, and looking for a special pool of water tucked away somewhere inside the thick canopy of trees. This pool of water that these adventurers were looking for was actually just an opening in the ground. Finally, after miles of sluggish travel, they found what they were looking for. The Mayans named it Nohach.
The cave has not always been underwater. It was actually made in the open air many thousands of years ago. Then the water finally rose. There are some of the most beautiful stalagmites and stalactites, soda straws, and stunning catacombs we've ever seen.
Today, however, it sits in 80-degree fresh water and is home to incredible sights for the rare cave diver who takes the time to explore its breathtaking mysteries. There's another fascinating Nohach mystery that can be discovered in a different part of the cave. This mystery lives in an area where the water hasn't yet taken over. When you break the surface of the pool in this part of the cave, the first thing you'll notice and hear is the hectic flapping of small wings directly above you. The ceiling of this part of the cave has become the home to thousands of bats. Ultimately, the water that has consumed this cave will rise high enough to dislodge the bats from their nesting spot. The entire area will be completely underwater. When that happens, the catfish that swam below the nesting bats may actually be more disappointed than the bats themselves. Bat guano, or droppings, is the catfish's primary source of food. Like wreck diving, cave diving is perfectly safe once a diver is trained well enough, supported himself with the proper equipment, and planned his dive with care and caution. However, whenever a diver exceeds his limitations or takes a risk he should not have taken, cave diving can turn into the diver's worst nightmare.
Well, we had 2 divers go in and 1 came out.
Well, unfortunately, this is probably another circumstance where probably very good open water divers tried a highly technical form of diving, which is cave diving, and basically threw their lives away simply because they didn't have the proper training and equipment. Often divers will push themselves, and there's a fine line between something being stressful and challenging, and far too often they cross that line. This is a big boy sport. You have to make up your mind about the risk ahead of time.
The lesson here is simple. During every type of specialty dive, cave diving in particular, a diver must exercise extreme caution. Be prepared, dive within your limitations, and never take risks you're not certain you can handle. But when you prepare properly, there is no cave you can't explore without the paralyzing specter of fear swimming alongside of you. For the well-trained and properly prepared recreational diver, cave diving can be an underwater wonder of the world, where lush geological formations grow beautifully and hundreds of fish species swim alongside you, almost like thousands of extra diving buddies. And that's a specialty dive that's really special. Another specialty type dive is an underwater hunt for artifacts or antiquities. These divers were able to locate some Mayan antiquities on the floor of a cenote, a Spanish name for a freshwater spring. They found these artifacts while working in association with a museum-sanctioned team of researchers. Any diver who's interested in searching out artifacts or antiquities must be certain he complies with all local laws and regulations. There are many countries where it's a serious crime to excavate that country's artifacts. So be certain to check the local legal requirements.
I made my first night dive on a reef and I just swam up to the fish. It seemed my light was a brush painting colors. It was a blast. You see stuff that you just don't see during the day.
Of all the specialty dives, night diving is an activity where many divers flatly ask, why night dive? What's so special about it? First of all, night diving is practically the same as diving during the day. In other words, a diver can generally apply the same techniques he's learned for day diving to diving after the sun's gone down. The biggest difference is not so much what the diver has to do, it's what he can expect to find during his dive. Marine creatures actually behave and look differently at night. Many of them, in fact, have chosen the night as their primary feeding time. It's easier to approach these fish at night, and easier to recognize fish that you would never have seen during the day. Some sandy areas that look barren during the day may teem with life at night. There are, however, some differences in preparation and equipment that separate night diving from day diving. Most certified divers usually already own their proper gear, except for lights. There are special strobe lights and glow-in-the-dark gear that a diver can buy to make certain his dive is state-of-the-art. Other equipment that might not be in a regular diver's package is a whistle and a variety of other attention-getting devices, like chemical light sticks and emergency light reflectors. Most night divers are surprised to discover that there's actually more light than they'd expected, as long as the diver doesn't go too deep. A full moon can sometimes be a capable companion for any night diver. Still, it's vital that all divers take 2 light sources with them on every dive. Make certain you carry a strong, dependable primary light and an easy-to-access backup. Anytime you or your diving buddy lose even one of your lights, that's a signal to return to the surface. You never want to get caught night diving without a light. Experienced night divers also learn to use their gear by touch. This easy-to-learn technique can be practiced anywhere, even in your own living room. There are also some don'ts that prepared night divers always talk about before they decide to make a dive. Don't night dive during strong surf is one of the most important warnings. Bad visibility, kelp entanglement, and surges in the current can be dangerous anytime. But at night, they can be deadly. Still, just like all other specialty dives, night diving can be an adventure that you'll never forget. Just plan properly, and your night dive will never turn into a nightmare. French Polynesia is made up of many tropical islands, each one seemingly more beautiful than the one before it. The Tahitian Islands, a 3-hour flight from Hawaii, are probably the most well-known of all Polynesia. And Bora Bora, a small island that's less than 30 miles in circumference, might well be the most recognizable of the Tahitian group. The clear waters of beautiful Bora Bora are perfect for a very different kind of specialty dive that's reserved for only the hardiest recreational diver: shark diving. The pristine lagoon off the shores of Bora Bora is home to millions of sea creatures, including over 300 different species of fish. One of these species is the tiger shark. These divers dove 40 feet down to watch a group of tiger sharks during their dinner hour. Like all specialty dives, shark diving requires a set of absolute rules and regulations regarding your diving behavior while you're face-to-face with one of God's most fearsome eating machines. Before going down to meet these 6 to 8 foot long giants, this group of divers equipped themselves with an emergency weapon, just in case the eating frenzy to come got out of hand. Humans have never been on any shark's list of dinner entrees, and almost every human shark attack has been due to a shark mistaking a person for a fish, or the human mistake of getting in the shark's way while he's trying to eat a fish. Most often, a diver can simply nudge a shark away with a strong but gentle tap to the shark's snout. Sometimes, a diver carries along a shark pole to firmly push away an aggressive shark. However, a shark diver must take care not to hit a shark too hard. If you agitate a shark with too sharp a kick, you could induce the shark to become overly aggressive, and then you'll have real problems on your hands. Remember, sharks really don't want trouble from humans. If we don't get in their way, and we watch them closely, shark diving is a very safe specialty dive. Yet when dinner is finally served to a school of hungry sharks, it's very easy to see why every shark diver is warned to steer clear of them. Sharks simply don't have any sophisticated table manners. For those shark divers who aren't quite up to free swimming with a testy group of sharks, there is another way of watching these primordial sea creatures in their natural environment. There are dives where you can watch sharks as long as you want to from the relative comfort of a large, sturdy shark cage. For this method of shark diving, the best waters are off the coast of Catalina Island in Southern California. This group of divers were on the lookout for the blue shark. Not long after they'd crammed themselves inside the cage, their hopes were answered. Several California blue sharks soon appeared and began a curious circle around their cage, sniffing out who and what they were. Even though the blue shark, like most sharks, will not attack humans and can be nudged away with a sharp tap on their snouts, these divers were warned to make sure they didn't allow the sharks to slip inside their cage. The aluminum bars that were made to protect the divers have a larger opening made for taking pictures. If a shark happened to slip up inside the cage, these recreational divers were warned it could very well send the animal into a frenzy as he madly tried to get out. Once again, the divers are shown that the greatest danger of sharks to humans are almost always the mistakes that humans make. Like all specialty dives, shark diving requires training, preparation, discipline, and a large helping of cautious adventure. With caution comes success, and with success comes an adventure that every diver can enjoy again and again. It is extraordinary that the greatest diving adventure of all has yet to be seen. Perhaps the so-called final frontier of the entire ocean lies deeper than humankind has ever reached. For specialty divers, the final frontier of diving may very well be deep diving. A special trip into the deepest regions of the ocean where few divers have ever been before you. It is an extra dimension of the cosmos that's baffled adventurers since the first human held his breath and dove into the briny deep. But for the serious recreational diver, a deep diving trip will never take you that far down. Most deep diving dives have an optimum depth of 100 feet, 30 meters. Military, technical, and commercial divers often dive deeper than 130 feet or 40 meters. But the training gear for those depths is much different and more complex than for recreational diving. Beside 100 feet 30 meters will take a deep diver into a world almost as foreign as another planet. The exploration possibilities are nearly endless for the person willing to take a look into the eeriest area on Earth. When you're deep diving, there are additional training and equipment requirements beyond any of the other specialty dives we've taken thus far. Since 100 feet will exert so much pressure on the human body, it's vital to make certain that each diver has a balanced regulator. It also requires that every diver carry an air tank that holds at least 70 cubic feet of air. For added safety, each diver should also carry a backup pony bottle of air. In deep water dives, the water temperature can plummet, in some places to nearly freezing due to thermoclines, which are increasingly cold layers of water that a diver passes through on his way down. Because of these thermoclines, a diver must always make sure he wears a proper exposure suit that's appropriate for the depth he's diving to. One of the most important aspects of deep water diving is the caution every diver must have regarding a condition called nitrogen narcosis, or rapture of the deep.
Nitrogen narcosis is literally an intoxicating effect caused by breathing air at deep depths. As a diver goes deeper, nitrogen impairs his nervous system, which slows down his mental functioning. When nitrogen narcosis strikes a diver, his entire diving judgment can be negatively affected. The diver's thinking may be severely distorted. He may not check his gauges properly, or he may take deadly risks he shouldn't take. To alleviate the narcosis, all a diver needs to do is to swim to a shallower depth. If a diver ever dives too deep for too long, he could be struck with a life-threatening condition called decompression sickness. Symptoms include dizziness, pain in the joints, and difficulty in breathing. Treatment of decompression illness almost always requires recompression in a recompression chamber with a trained medical and technical staff. Yet with the appropriate dive plan, no diver has to suffer from decompression sickness. It's far more common for the recreational deep diver to become intoxicated with joy as he or she navigates the lush, mysterious, and sometimes bizarre creatures and geography of the ocean's depths. There's nowhere else in the world where the recreational adventurer can find so many extraordinary discoveries as those growing or buried on the ocean floor. And there's no better way to enjoy this adventure than with a tank full of air, some good, reliable friends. And the knowledge that diving, no matter how you do it, is always special.
With the introduction of scuba gear, the popularity of recreational diving has grown rapidly over the years. It should be noted, however, that each of the diving specialties you have seen require special preparation, and each should be taken very seriously. Although it is natural for divers to want to continue having new and challenging diving experiences, specialty diving is not for novices. The sea demands respect from its human visitors. Once divers are armed with knowledge and understand the limitation of their equipment and themselves, the harsh environment of the sea should pose no real threat. Divers can then truly experience the beautiful seascape of our water planet and can enjoy extremely rewarding experience. I am Zan-Misélel Κουστώ, and this is just one of the many stories of the sea.